Tried running through the city like a wrecking ball and it's already gone away. Erected and I'll never be the same. Say it's all now, say it now, see. Such a trail with the river running low. Trying not to drown in the city night glow. The lights are gonna navigate, check into the story. A lot of dumb things I've done while drinking. A lot of cool girls I used to know. A couple old cars that remind me of a time. And an old black dog that got me through it all. Put it all on black. The best time that you've ever had. Be a while and hell won't be there. These stupid dreams become what you are. Smash my spirit, gotta smash it hard for you. Jokes on me, no one can see his face. I'm in such like some job like bull. Get out of this hotel. Playing rich and well talking up. And I'll be a band. Oh, you're dancing with the devil. Always acting trouble. Yeah, you gotta keep trying if you wanna feel alive. Gotta fight for the places on. You don't wanna to be responsible, yeah, just seems impossible now. I think about it, but I'd rather head down to the liquor store. Well, you can if you do you're damn if you don't. So let's just kill ourselves with alcohol and call it a day. Nice to know, yeah. I'm wondering if you'd hang around if I said that we're just searching for it there. I can't there looking so surprised. Well, I'm not like those other guys. Don't expect you to sympathize, but you better believe that street will never wander. Excess makes the heart go fonder. Wrong and rock, you've been hiding under. You look so dirty, but it's so nice to know. Yeah, I wondered if you'd call me out. I said that you've been taken by a liar. I can't control it. I sure as hell can tell you how it is to be so low. So I say, let's get higher, yeah. Let's go back to the liquor store, baby. We locked our eyes and fell in love that day. You see, it's starting to feel like social now. So let's not think about the future now. Some things I better know. We're all born to die, now meant to make it. And we did it
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, my name is Jordan.
And my name is Christo.
And we are
ToyPunks.
ToyPunks. What's up, everybody? Welcome to ToyPunks Live, episode number 1. Hope you guys enjoyed the little video Christo made for you guys.
Yep.
Sweet tunes by the Jetbirds. The album's called Evolved Animal. You guys can check them out on Spotify. And
check them out on Facebook also. Give them a like. Before
we start this, if you guys just mind just subscribing to our channel, just hit that little bell button, give us so you guys can be notified every time we go live. Or
you're gonna want to know when we put a video. We're
doing random videos soon lately, so just you want to be informed.
You never know.
And that's pretty much it. I mean, I guess this is ToyPunks Live, episode 1. We've come a long way. I mean, I can't believe we're doing live stuff now.
It's awesome.
It's crazy. Like, we were literally just doing regular videos in May. We started, and yeah, it's pretty cool. We came a long way. We started with just a cell phone. Still using a cell phone, but you know, we try and upgrade the backgrounds. We went from a garbage bag to some materials.
Garbage bag.
So we got big plans. We're gonna get better lighting, better equipment for you guys. And thank you guys once again so much for watching and supporting us through the beginning of this. And we hope to give you guys some better stuff in the future.
Yep.
So this is ToyPunks Live, episode 1, and our special guest.
It's gonna be a good show. we got a special guest. We got Gene St. Jean. He's going to be joining us in a little bit.
Amazing sculptor, guys.
Awesome
I'm
sculptor.
So happy that we got to have somebody this talented come on our first episode. It's crazy.
It's awesome. Really.
I didn't, honestly, when I first found out about this, I didn't really know too much about his work, and more I look into it, it's just blowing my mind because
it's incredible.
We're really lucky to have him on here.
Yeah, he's worked for a lot of companies too. I mean, odds are if you're a collector, you probably have something that he's sculpted in your collection.
Yeah.
I mean, we'll get into that later when we get the interview going, but he's really awesome. I recommend you guys check out his work as well. He's on Facebook and he's on Instagram. You can check out stuff. He shows a lot of pictures of the sculpts he does and stuff. It's incredible work to see and kind of see the work in progress kind of photos and stuff too.
So actually, speaking of some of his stuff, coincidentally, I have one of his figures that I picked up a while ago just because it was a cool figure.
Yeah, it's pretty sweet.
It's awesome. So I'm going to grab him real quick. Just give me 1 second.
There he is. Whoa. I'll hold Frankie. Boom. Frankenstein. Right. Sculpted by Gene St. Jean. It's awesome. Looks really good. Give Jordan a second here to get his stuff back together now.
It's crazy here, guys.
Yeah, we're all wired up. We wanted to make sure we had some good audio. We wanted to make sure there was no feedback, stuff like that. So, you know, we took a lot of steps to try and do our best with the audio. I hope you guys can hear us all right. We can't tell. So if you can't hear us, you know, we got, you know, it's a live feed of the comments coming through. So if you need anything, go ahead and, you know, let us know if you can't hear us, if there's any issues on your end. But I think we should be good. I think we did enough test runs to make sure this is going to go well.
Hopefully this works out really awesome. Okay, so let's go over this figure. So yeah, I picked up this Frankenstein. There's a bunch of these figures. They're the classic Universal figures made by Diamond Select. They're sweet. They're really good display pieces. It comes with a platform you guys can see here and like this machinery, you know, some of like the lab equipment from, you know, when Dr. Frankenstein makes the monster himself.
Everything you need to make your own monster.
And he's cool. He's really detailed. The sculpt is awesome. Like it looks great. I think it looks really cool.
Face looks good. A lot of good sculpting there. Like I said, I mean, the guy does great work. If you watch the countdown before the video, I mean, we had 15 different photos. We played a different photo every minute of the work that he's done just to kind of show off. Like, it's awesome.
Yeah,
the guy does great work.
And a wide range of things too. That's what's really cool. Like he does horror, he does, you know, superheroes, all sorts of stuff. So, like I said, I'm super pumped to have him on. So, I mean, that pretty much does it for the figure, I guess. So we'll get to bringing him on here. We have to give him a call. And I also want to just throw this out here too, you guys. If you guys have any questions during this episode that you want to ask Gene himself, write them down on the comments and we'll hit him up. And afterwards, when the interview is all done, then that's when we'll have him answer some of these questions and we'll get them down and we'll do that for you guys. So yeah, anything you guys want to say, hit us up. And
I'll be checking the chats and stuff. So if you guys, like I said, if you guys have any questions, we're going to keep a log of the questions. And then at the end, we'll kind of circle back to those and see if we can get some of those answered for you. I'm also going to be looking at Facebook a little bit as well. So if you guys need anything on there, hit us up on there. But just stay on YouTube. Don't leave the video. Enjoy it.
All right. So let's do this. Let's call up Gene. He should be.
Yep. Let's see if we can get him going here. We'll send him an invite real quick. Hold on. Let me pull up his email address. Let's give a second here.
Be in the recent calls.
All right, so the invite's sent. We'll just give him a few minutes here to jump on. Once he gets the call and gets on here, then we can start this going.
So yeah, in the future too, we want to, once we got some better equipment, we want to have some music playing throughout this. So usually, you know, ToyPunks is not just about the toys, it's about the music as well. And we're going to go over some of that later too in the interview. So it'd be cool to have, it'd be pretty sweet to have some music playing while this is going. So, yeah.
So that's the goal. We'll get better. You know, this is, like I said, this is live episode number 1. So we're just going to get better and better as we go, just like we did with the reviews. So if you saw episode 1 on our reviews versus episode 29 that just dropped, they're much better. So
Liam Anthony likes the ToyPunks wallpaper. Thanks, Liam.
Yeah, thanks, man.
All right. I don't know what's going on here. We were kind of having we did a test call yesterday, and for some reason he couldn't get it. So let's see if he could just call us. So can we answer that live on live?
Well, I can answer. That's mine though.
Oh, okay.
So I tested it, and they're going through. So hopefully he'll get the message in a couple minutes here. I know he's waiting for it. So we're gonna just send him a message real quick and see if we can get him on the call here. We did tell him 7:10, so it's possible that he's just getting ready as well. We told him it would be about 7:10 when we give him a call. So
Toy Fair is coming up, dude. He's probably just sculpting, man.
yeah, he's got to get everything ready. We got the New York Toy Show coming up, which is going to be awesome, actually. The Toy Fair is going to be sweet. I can't wait to see what kind of stuff they're going to show off. Hoping NECA brings some good stuff to the table.
Woo, yeah.
I'm also interested to see if we're going to see anything from Playmates for the Ninja Turtles.
Ooh, yeah,
because
yep.
the old show's over. We got a new show coming out. Actually, they got a new Ninja Turtles show coming out this, I think, summer. So hopefully we'll get a glimpse of the new figures coming up at the Toy Fair. We'll see at the Toy Show.
I don't know what's going on with this. Oh, I think
here we go. Here we go.
What's up, Gene?
Not much, man. Sorry, I was waiting for the invite, and then when the thing came up, I wasn't sure if how to get hooked in. You know.
Oh, for sure.
No
man.
worries. Glad we got you on.
Well, I just want to start it off by saying thank you so much for doing this with us for our first episode. Truly is an honor to have someone as talented as you on the show. And this is just great. I'm super pumped to ask you some things, and we're just really happy that you decided to do this with us tonight.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Oh, sure. No problem. I appreciate the opportunity to talk about all my stuff and whatnot. You notice I avoided any 4-letter invectives there. So
yeah, definitely. Yeah, we like to try and keep the show clean, and you know, if things slip, whatever. But you know, we want all ages to like this. So
yeah, we want kids to enjoy it too. If they want to see how sculpting works, you know, see how that goes. That's awesome for them to be able to get on there.
So let's do you want to maybe just give us a little info about yourself for people who don't know who you are, like where you're from and whatnot? Just a little short, just info about that.
Sure. Yeah, I grew up in upstate New York in Putnam County, which is like about an hour and change north of New York City. And for most of my life, my career goal was music. I played in bands since I was probably 15 or 16, and went to music school. Well, started out, I went to school for electrical engineering for about a year, and I hated that. Gradually crept into the music program, and I graduated with a degree in piano and minor in percussion, and so dabbled in composition. So when I got out of school, I was still working the same job I had worked since I was like 16. I worked at a deli doing butcher work, and then did the band stuff on the side. And when I got out of school, I started teaching piano lessons at different music stores, and I taught private lessons at my house, and I had some organist gigs at a few different churches.
Oh,
and,
nice. That's cool.
You know, whatever else I could find. I did a couple of scores for commercials for like little cheesy cable vision kind of commercial things, and whatever I could find, you know, and while I was doing all that, I kind of started getting back into toys a little bit. Really, it was kicked off by Burton's first Batman film, because, you know, I guess around the same time that I got into rock bands, like specifically Kiss kind of kicked it off for me in like 6th grade. Yeah. And around that time, as I got into music, all the toy and comic book stuff started to fall by the wayside. And before I knew it, that's all I did. And, you know, I'd completely forgotten about comic books and everything else until Burton's movie. And then I think I mentioned you guys.
One of the best, man. One of the best superheroes. It's the best superhero movie in my opinion. I mean, well, granted, I guess Batman's not really a superhero, but
he's a superhero, though. I mean,
he's a vigilante.
He's a vigilante, but he's got money. That's all you really need.
That's awesome, though.
Yeah, so that kind of kicked it off for me. and got into comic books again and collected all the Kenner figures and the Toy Biz stuff, and started doing a little customizing. And then after a couple of years of still doing band stuff and still having my same job, and that kind of soured on me. My job kind of soured on me. I ended up quitting in a fit of petulance.
Yeah, it happens. I mean,
Yeah.
we've all been there.
But the thing is usually when I take on a job, I'm with that job for at least 5 years. I will ride that into the ground. As long, you'd have to be really nasty for me to quit a job. But this particular day, I guess I was burnt out. But so I ended up finding a job in what was it, in Briarcliff Manor, New York. And this lady had a doll company out of her house, did all sculpting for different toy companies like Mattel and stuff like that, and Ashton Drake. So I went in there as basically an apprentice. She taught me mold making. I started learning more about sculpting, and I would keep notes every day on everything I learned. I learned how to mix wax, a little bit of machine work on a lathe,
Okay.
and different anatomical things about, sculpting portraits and, faces like cartoons. So then I started working on stuff of my own at home. And after about 5 years, in the back of a Spawn comic book, there was an ad for McFarlane Toys looking for sculptors. So I sent my portfolio in, and they gave me a tryout project, which was from Spawn 13. There was this Medusa figure.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that was the first thing that I ever worked on for them. So that basically got me in the door. And, we talked about a salary and all that. So I relocated from New York State about an hour south into Jersey. And I worked for those guys the first couple of years as, just a pit sculptor. And then they put me in charge of the sculpting department. And all told, I think I was there about 6.5 years. But, you guys are collectors, so you were able to follow the track of what happened. With McFarlane, as far as stylistically, they got more into doing movie stuff and sports, and they started drifting farther and farther away from the things I was really interested in. Because really, when I started sculpting, all I really wanted to do was Batman. And
Nice. That's awesome.
so I figured.
I think we actually found a picture of the Medusa figure.
Yeah, I'm guessing
We're
this
gonna
is it. Let's
throw
see.
it up there and see.
I guess let me know if this is not the figure.
Yeah, that's the figure. Yeah.
That's sweet,
Yeah.
man.
All right, let's see. Let's set this up so everybody can take a look. This is the figure that he's talking about that he sculpted. This thing is awesome.
That's really cool. There's a lot
of detail in that. That is impressive. That's really cool.
So one thing real quick, I think it's just kind of funny. It's kind of crazy is that you had mentioned that you were a butcher as one of your previous jobs. And it's just kind of crazy because it's not really, but in a sense, it's kind of you came full around because it's you're kind of sculpting, I guess, carving meat in a sense. And then you go to carving plastic. Not literally, but it's just kind of crazy,
It's kind of the Jeffrey Dahmer version of Toy Sculptor.
Yeah, right. Exactly. I thought that was just kind of funny how that worked out for you.
Yeah, so that's how I landed there. And as they kind of drifted away from fantasy stuff, because I like realistic stuff and I have a knack for it, so that was fine for a while. But one of the ironies is that once you get into a position where you're making more money and you have a little bit of artistic control, the job starts to suck, because all of a sudden you have a room full of crybabies that you got to babysit. Everybody's got an issue, and almost none of them are actually pertaining to anything artistic. It's personal issues and everything else. So you got to deal with that, and you get further and further away from actually doing artwork. So, so I, gave my notice, and I had a couple of companies had sort of contacted me anyway. And when I left there, I was doing a little bit of work for NECA. And then within that first year of me splitting, I think the first company that contacted me was Chuck Torciera from Diamond Select.
Okay.
And he wanted to work with me. And I also talked to a guy from from DC Direct also, and they ended up being my primary clients for a long time. You know, particularly Diamond. I mean, I'm so
Yeah.
I noticed that you have a lot of Diamond Select.
Yeah, there's a lot of different. When we were looking at a lot of the different photos of the stuff that you've sculpted, there's a lot of different Diamond Select stuff. Really good stuff.
Yeah, I like them a lot because they give me a lot of artistic latitude. They take care of people that work for them. I mean, most companies you work for, you got to chase them for every penny. You know, it's like you basically you sign a contract that's, you know, like a 30-day turnaround on a payment, and you end up chasing them for 90 days. And it's like, you know, it's live and let live. You know, maybe you run a little long on a project, so they take a little longer to pay you. And nobody really gets on each other's back, you know, because you try to keep everything kind of copacetic with them. But at times it gets tough, you know, and you're waiting 3 months to get paid on something. It's nonsense.
Something I wanted to ask real quick. You might end up answering this, but so like you had said that you got into contact with Marvel Select reached out to you. So now is it a lot of times like, because, you know, obviously different sculptors and stuff have different styles, and is it the toy companies themselves? Do they have already an idea where they just want to be like, hey, like we have this idea for this specific line of figures, do it in this style, or like, do you have freedom in the style of the character, or are there some jobs where you're like, hey, I made this sweet version of, you know, whatever this character, and like pitch it to them at all? Like, how does that work?
Well, it depends on the company. Most companies, they have a fairly rigid structure. Like I think most, even especially like the mass market companies, I would imagine so. But even with the smaller collectible companies, who by smaller I mean relative to like Mattel or something, but like Diamond Select, DC Direct, Mezco, those guys, they generally have their own in-house designers and things like that. Depending on the licensor, like if we're working with Marvel, generally they'll do a design that they'll submit to Marvel for approval, and then they'll bounce that back to me. But that isn't always necessarily the way we work. Like if the licensor's a little flexible, like with Marvel's pretty flexible, and Universal Monsters was another one. On some of the projects, Diamond would just give me the character and say, oh, we want this character from this era. Like I did a Hawkeye that I really like the character Hawkeye, but I like the comic version with the, you know, like the Huntress mask.
He's got to have the mask on. Without the mask, it's not the same.
Yeah, the Arsenal version doesn't work for me. But so about the extent of that conversation was, you know, we want you to do a Hawkeye. Well, actually, they gave me a list of like 10 characters that they were doing. At that time, they weren't doing as much movie stuff. So they're like, I think by contract, they can do about a dozen Marvel Selects a year. Okay. So it was almost all comic book versions. And the ones on there, I think Hawkeye was in that batch, and maybe Nightcrawler. I forgot what else. There was a few that I really liked. And I picked Hawkeye, and I said to him, I said, we're going to do the John Byrne version though, right? And he's like, yeah. So, and that was as far as the design direction went. It was like John Byrne, Hawkeye, and then I look up the reference. And they allow me to kind of interject a little bit of my style into it too, because the way I look at it, like you look at a comic book, obviously you have the writer, but in terms of the actual pictorial stuff, you got your penciler and your inkler and your colorist. I'm like that fourth guy. And when you get into the toy, I got to take that 2D art and make that 2D art make sense as a three-dimensional character, and then also work the art style around where the articulation is going to go. And over the years, it's kind of evolved. We used to do a lot less articulation, just focus on the sculpt. And I think that had a lot to do with the terms of their agreement as it related to Hasbro's master license. You know, I mean, it's been loosened up the last few years where now we're doing a lot of articulation. Right. But in terms of interpretation, like the Venom that I did, the Carnage that I did, there was no design work for that. I just went through, typically, like if I get a job like Venom, I go to the comic store, I pick up a pile of graphic novels and collections, and then I read about the character for a couple of weeks.
Right.
Yeah.
And then I pick through, and it's like, okay, the Kelly Jones Madness thing would be cool. I want to do a Todd McFarlane head. And what else did I pick out of that? And then like on the Carnage, a lot of it was from Maximum Carnage. And there was a head that was really weird looking that was from Venom versus Carnage. And then I did a, half transforming portrait head of Cletus Cassidy that was specific to, who was the artist? Maybe Mark Bagley, can't remember. But, and Marvel, I know the couple of the guys in approvals at Marvel, and they generally like what I do. So, when I've talked to them, they're like, yeah, we like what you do. Generally, as long as you stay within the content of what delineates the character, then we're cool with it. So that gives you a lot of latitude,
Yeah. We actually found a picture of the Carnage, and then we also have a picture of the Hawkeye too.
Yep. So here's the Carnage, which he's awesome.
That's so sweet.
Yeah.
Man.
Actually, we used this Carnage in the 15 minutes before we started the video. We had just different photos of some of the different sculpts that you've done, and this is one of the ones we picked because I liked it so much.
Oh, cool.
That one's awesome.
And then let's see here. I had. Let's see if we can show the Hawkeye that you're talking about as well.
Yeah, that's the one.
Yeah, he's small, but I can't.
It's still sweet. Yeah, it's cool. I like the Marvel Select like toys too, because they always come with like kind of a display base, and they are more for like display, but they're just they'd look better. Like personally, I think they look a lot better than like I mean.
Yeah, for me,
comparing them to the
sometimes
Legends,
I like sculpts over
certain ones. Yeah,
over the articulation and stuff. Where other times I would prefer to have a more articulated figure. But
yeah, right.
I like a lot of the statues and stuff that come out, like with Diamond Select. They look really nice.
Yeah. So kind of going back to the beginning, I guess, back to where we were at when you said I think you were saying about like the doll. There's the first job, the doll place that you were at.
Mm-hmm.
Is that right? So yeah, so prior to that, so like you had no like sculpting, no nothing, like you never took like, I guess they don't really have any like really kind of classes for that, but like at home or nothing. You had mentioned the customs that you were making, but it's just because not everyone can just sculpt, I truly believe that it's a talent. Some people can do it and some people can't. And so you just kind of just figured out that you had this talent kind of thing
Well, I like to draw since I was a kid, and I
Okay.
took art classes in high school. But I think in high school, maybe we made Christmas ornaments once, and I did like you ever see that flying eye with the bat wings from the Jimi Hendrix cover from Jimi Hendrix
Yeah.
Experience? I sculpted one of those as a Christmas ornament, and
Nice.
And the monk from Led Zeppelin 4. From the insert, the guy with the lantern.
Yeah.
I mean, they looked like crap, but they were cool at the time. But that was the only thing I ever really sculpted. And then, like I said, I was out of it for a long time. About as far as I went with artwork after that was designing band logos and flyers for different things I was doing. And then
that's cool for sure.
Briefly, I was working on a indie comic project with one of my friends that just kind of didn't go anywhere. So, I dabbled in artwork, but not sculpture. And I really wasn't aware there was really any kind of an opportunity to make a living doing that. It never struck me. And when it did, when I started collecting toys, how do you even get into it? There was no internet. This was like,
right.
This is like early 90s or something. So there's no internet to go on. I didn't even have a computer with internet until like, I don't know, maybe 2000 or something like that.
Yeah, probably, dude. Yeah,
I think it's
like
probably around the time when I started getting like
dial
an
up.
Actual
Mhm.
internet that I could use.
Really use the phone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Someone would pick up the phone and then it kicks you off the internet.
Yeah.
Yeah, fun stuff. So what's one of the favorite projects of yours that you've worked on over the years, if you had to narrow it down to one of your favorites?
Well, it's hard to say. It's like generally I only pick jobs that I want to do. And a lot of them, like one of the coolest ones I've worked on that's something I've always wanted to do was the Batman 66 stuff, because I was 1 year old when that came on TV in 66. And I would watch it every day, like until, you know, it was on like right before my dad would get home from work. So I used to watch that. And that was the first time I ever saw Batman, and I was obsessed with him since then. And then when I got back into toys and comics, that was my first go-to kind of thing. But so that's a big one. But then also occasionally I get to do oddball stuff that's not related to anything else. I did a giant pumpkin head figure for Soda Toys maybe 6-7 years ago. Hard to say now. But it's like, so I think I sculpted him at like 22 or 23 inches tall, and they produced it around 18 or 20 inches tall. It was a big rotocast figure. And
that is sick. We're looking it up right now. That's crazy.
And what was it was the first time I worked with Jerry Macaluso from Soda, who's since then become a good friend of mine. And it was funny when it came out. I think it came out as around $75, and the paint ops on it looked kind of weak. Like Jerry was on his way out. He sold that company and split. The guys who were running it, I guess, weren't all that great at like factory QC and stuff. So like the paint job, you know, they reproduced the sculpt pretty well. The paint job was kind of lackluster, kind of dull and muddy, and it wasn't really a hot seller. Like I went on to like Corner Store Comics, a Big Bad Toy Store, and they were basically blowing the things out for like $20-30.
Wow.
So I bought like 10 of them and stashed them in my basement as just schmooze gifts for like clients and stuff, or like birthday gifts.
Yeah.
And now you can't get one for under $400, you know?
What?
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Wow, dude.
It was funny though.
That's funny that's really funny you said that, because that was one of the things I wanted to ask you is like, man, I bet you just have like, well, I wanted to ask you about your collection. If you were a collector, you know, just in general, well, like what type of things, or like what type of things you like to collect, or certain characters, but also just like the fact that like some of these figures that you sculpted, like you said, you know, some of them go up so much. So like, I mean, are you always just grabbing multiple ones and just, I mean, you know, like some of that like NECA stuff, like they're those like, I don't know, it's just crazy. You know, they go up a lot, and
well, because once they're out of production, then you can't get them, and then everybody jacks the price up, you know, online. If you want one, you got to pay for it.
Right.
Yeah, it kind of depends. Like when I first started at McFarlane, it was such a huge deal to see something I'd done on a store shelf. Like before that, at my old job, the only thing I did that ever showed up in a Toys R Us, I did a 12-inch creature from the Black Lagoon for Hasbro, my old job. Nice. And it's kind of like a G.I. Joe body, like really like kind of clunky looking, because you had to use that armature, you know, from the 12-inch G.I. Joes. But aside from that, like when I started working McFarlane, like I did the Aussie for them, and I forgot what the first few things were. Started seeing the stuff pop up in stores. It was like I'd get a few of them, and be like I'd open one and get all the variants, and had the sealed ones. I still have all the sealed stuff on my wall. But now it's like I do so much stuff now. Like what's cool at Diamond, they always send me samples. So
that's sweet.
If I do a figure or a statue, they'll send me one or two of them, or a few more than that, if it's whatever the deal is. And it's just completely a courtesy. There's no contractual obligation on their part.
Okay.
That's cool of them though, to send you a couple.
That's dope. Yeah.
Yeah. And DC was generally pretty good like that too. You know, most companies, they generally won't send you something. So if it's like an expensive statue, then you maybe want to think, do I really need it? you know?
Right.
But my own collection encompasses, like when I first got into it, it was predominantly Batman stuff, then kind of expanded into DC Universe in general. Like I have a lot of the DC UC stuff.
Okay.
And, I like a lot of anime chick stuff and anything with bat wings and things like that. I got a little bit into Gundam and was really into Devilman until that line, the Future line, ended.
Cool.
So I've kind of, now I just sort of pick up odds and ends here and there that I think are pretty cool, you know?
Right.
It's not real focused on any one thing. Because even with the Batman thing, it's impossible to collect even if focus just on action figures. You can't possibly collect them all. There's just too many.
For real. Those like the Batman, the animated series figures, I like those figures a lot, but they've just got so much stuff, dude. It's crazy. I don't even know if I want to dive into that because then you have like the Batcave, the Batmobile, they got the Batwing, dude. It's just nuts. They're sweet, but
yeah, they're beautiful. I mean, it's just, and I'm a Batman geek, so I'd totally be into it if my house was 10 times the size and I had 10 times it's just, it's too much money and space, you know?
For sure. Yeah, exactly.
Space is always an issue.
Yeah.
But I picked up the Man line.
So speaking of that, actually, so I noticed you got a bunch of stuff behind you there. So this is, I'm assuming this is your studio. Is this your house?
Yeah. I might be able to do something with the. Let's see if this will work.
Maybe switch it to.
Yeah, possibly. Maybe we could use
take a look at some different stuff because there's a lot of different stuff you got back there. That's cool.
Yeah, let's see what happens with this. All right, might work. Oh, just want to make sure I didn't lose you.
Let's see if it goes.
Hold on, let me turn this on.
Sorry, guys.
It should be better now.
Yeah, I just muted it all so that the mic was bad news.
Okay.
Let's see. I think you're just.
Let's see here.
It's just your profile pic now.
Let me see if I can switch this. You could tell I'm a technological wizard.
Dude, I'm not very much better either.
Oh wait, let's see. Oh, there we go.
There we go. Wow.
All right, 1 second. I'll switch on some overhead lights.
Just that little shot right there.
Horde
awesome.
One of our viewers, Horde Rocker, says Guar toys, and I agree. We need some Guar figures, man. No one's got some sweet Guar figures, dude. I've just been waiting for somebody to throw down some Guar figures.
Aren't there pops or something like that coming out?
I did see something. I don't think through Funko, but there is someone making like some type of like looking pop things I've seen. Dude, that is sick though.
So this
is this all stuff that you've sculpted over the years?
Yeah, a lot of Marvel, Milestone from Diamond. Have kind of a bunch of heads that I've done. Thundercats. A bunch of DC busts I did for Blackest Night Day. This is kind of the debris table. There's a bunch of creature replica stuff going on here. Some stuff that I'm into, like that build.
Nice,
really cool.
That isn't something I did. I just dig the Red Skull.
Yeah.
And this is a bunch of stuff I'm just like to collect, predominantly like anime stuff.
Oh, okay.
Wow, man.
That is awesome.
A buttload of Batman stuff I'm into. There's some of my old McFarlane stuff packaged.
We're freezing up a little bit.
We go.
There we go.
Oh, there's your carded figures.
Nice.
Horde Rocker, we hear you. We're copying down all these questions.
All right, some Devilman stuff, some Bishuju stuff. My cat looking scared in her carrier.
What's your cat's name?
Gabrielle.
Gabriel.
Cool.
Nice.
Cool.
Pumpkinhead prototype. There's that's from the box set from Sleepy Hollow. I did the tree that came with the four.
What? Dude, that's crazy.
That is awesome.
Some more miscellaneous stuff. An Eddie I did for
Is
NECA.
that Leatherface to see?
Yeah, for Mezco.
Nice.
Some of my
Yeah,
own.
I think we used his photo as well in the intro.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. So
This is so sick, man.
Mez.
Dude, there's that
Bust.
bank. There's the
Yeah,
Joker
that's the
bank.
Joker bank.
All
Yeah,
the-
we used that as well.
Yeah, did all those guys. The Destroyer from Select. That's a
That's
Bug
cool.
Bunny from Mez that was not produced. Let's see. I don't know if you see if you can go this far. You still see things?
Yeah,
Let's see.
yeah.
Yep. Yeah, we're still good so far. Oh wow, you got a whole other section.
Yeah, this is kind of my library area.
Really cool.
Little practice area. I'm struggling with Chopin right now. And this is a bunch of Marvel and DC
Wow.
figures.
Holy cow.
Kind of got in when the first Iron Man film came out. Kind of got into an Iron Man trip.
Kind of, yeah. That's awesome, man.
Bunch of DCUC stuff. Planet of the Apes. I'm really into X-Men. That's my X-Men stuff.
Nice.
Some more of my work on the top. There's a couple other things scattered in there. My mom was getting me these crazy pencil Santas for a while for Christmas that I think are really cool.
Wow.
This is so sick.
That
I worked
Kong is
on a
cool.
bunch of comic figures for DC. A couple of those there. Captain Action was something I grew up with, so I picked up a few of the ones that Playing Mantis or whatever did. We call it Medieval Spawn, Bermejo Batman, Major Maxim. They were all McFarlane projects. Joker from Bermejo.
A lot of cool
Yeah,
stuff.
dude, you got a lot of
Big
sweet
Hero
stuff, man.
6.
Yeah, and then let's see. Here's some. This is a bunch of DC stuff and Marvel.
This is incredible. I
Yeah,
mean,
dude,
really,
this is like
insane.
crazy, man. This is so sick. You have such a sick crib. Like, this is awesome, man.
It's a Storm that I did for Sideshow.
Oh, nice.
Dude,
The
that one's
Mohawk
dope.
Storm, that's really cool.
Yeah, that's awesome.
I like her with the Mohawk better
Yeah.
than the other styles.
There's a She-Hulk for a private commission.
Nice.
Nice.
Taxi Driver was a kit I did
What?
go.
That's awesome.
Dude.
from Harry Potter,
Elvis.
miscellaneous DC and Snarf, Elvis, Simmons.
Oh my god, dude, this is so cool.
There's all the bunch of the Batman stuff. I'm kind of creeping around my tree here, trying not to knock it over.
That is awesome.
That's really cool, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you get
So-
the idea.
Yeah, so let's
that is awesome.
let's talk a little bit about Creatureplica, your company and how you started that, and yeah, I don't know. Oh yeah, let's
Switch back. I'll switch over to
Hold on, let me nuke this other one. It might interfere.
That's a really impressive collection, though, man. That's sweet.
Yeah, I'm into it. I like doing it, and I like collecting it, and going to shows when I can get away to do them. You know.
Yeah, yeah. It's like you're not even really working, dude, because it's just something that you're passionate about and enjoy, you know?
Yeah, it has its downside, like especially this time of year. It's tough because I'm getting ready for Toy Fair, so it's kind of always gets hairy, like before Toy Fair and before San Diego Comic-Con.
Yeah, I could see
Yeah.
it being stressful for sure.
I'm sure a lot of the different companies are pushing for you to get all your stuff sculpted so they can present them and stuff at Toy Fair.
Yeah, that's what it comes down to. You know,
Yeah.
they want to have as much as possible to present to buyers so that they know, basically you may have a plan as to basically how many pieces you're going to make, but it's really dictated by the interest from buyers. Like most of the doesn't affect Marvel Select in the same way, because Marvel Select, like, they'll sell stuff into the Disney store and into comic stores, but lines like Universal Monsters, those lines kind of live and die on whether Toys R Us is going to be on board with them or not.
Right.
Yeah.
Sorry, 1 second. So, so yeah, about sorry about that. About the creature replica. That's
Yeah.
I don't know, man. I really like these figures. If you guys
awesome.
have a second, check them out on
They're
Facebook. I know there's a page up there. There's a website too. It's pretty sweet, dude. I really like what you guys are doing with that. How'd you guys start that? Are you working with other people? Yeah, what's up with what's up?
Well, that came about, I guess, about 3 years ago. One of the guy who started at Jeff Byers, he had contacted me through a mutual friend. And specifically, my friend told me that, I know this guy is looking for somebody to do Bigfoot sculpture. And I told him, I was like, look, I said, just have him call me. I don't need to know anything else. I'm already interested.
Already on board right there.
Yeah. So I talked to him, and he came out to see the studio, and we planned out a line of figures, which originally was going to be a Sasquatch, an orang pendek, a Yowie, and a Yeti. And then we decided to vary it up by postponing 2 of the figures and just going with the Sasquatch and the Yeti, and then adding the 2 werewolves. We ended up doing the Rougarou, which is based more in Cajun folklore out of New Orleans.
Okay.
Witchcraft and like weird kind of Catholicism kind of
Voodoo kind of stuff.
Yeah, exactly. As opposed to European werewolf folklore. Although, looks just like a regular werewolf, like a howling werewolf or something. But
yeah.
Actually, we just pulled up a picture here so we can show everybody this, because these are really, really cool. I like them a lot.
Yo, is there any way you could bounce out of? I guess it doesn't really matter because there's 2 windows. We're seeing 2 windows.
Yeah, you're still on your mobile, it looks like.
Oh, let's see. Thought I shut it down, but maybe not. No, I think it's off.
Let's see here.
Let me see. Oh, maybe it is on.
Yeah, it looks like the audio is still coming from your phone. But while you're working on that, everybody can take a look. These are the figures that he's talking about, the creature replica figures, which are insane.
Dude, they're sweet. Yeah.
You are muted right now, it looks like.
From your desktop.
Yeah, on the computer. We can't hear you. Can you hear us? We can't hear you. You're muted.
Oh, there you go. I think you're unmuted. Oh, now you're muted again. Now you're muted.
There we go. Now
Sweet.
we can hear you.
Can you hear me? I'm not hearing anything.
Yeah, we're good. Can you hear us?
Oh, there it is.
All right. Technical difficulties, no worries.
Yeah.
So yeah, those are really awesome though. I like a lot of the different stuff. Like the sculpts on those are really cool. I like the werewolves are just insane.
Voodoo werewolf, that's the one, the like one with the skull and the like blue and gray kind of. Is that the one you're talking about?
Yeah, I think so.
Dope.
Yeah, exactly. And then the one above it is the mascot from Horror Hound magazine.
Oh, okay.
Okay. So that one's cool too.
Yeah, dude. I like the Yeti too. It's weird.
Yeah. The Yeti looks like he's huge.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's pretty big. I guess he's probably, like 8.5 inches tall. I designed them so that they'd work with a 6 or 7 inch scale figure line. So if you work like in comparative terms, like a 6 or 7 inch figure is like a 6 foot male,
Yeah.
then he would
Right.
be
It'll
like
be in scale.
tall, you know.
Yeah, right. That's awesome. I love that. Like NECA just put out that the Chucky figure, and it's
Mhm.
perfect because it's like in scale with the rest of his figures, so it looks
It's
like
only a
like
few
a little
inches tall.
doll instead of doing a 6-inch actual tall figure. It's cool because it looks really nice with your other like 6 or 7-inch figures.
But yeah, so that's how that whole thing started, and then we got the first line into production about. Guess the first series has been out for almost 2 years now or so. So it's done pretty good. I mean, it's tough to produce an original line that's not based on a video game or a movie or a comic book.
Yeah, yep. I could only imagine.
And I mean, you could tell it's no one really does it anymore, you know, or rarely. I've done a couple of original figures for Diamond, like for Universal Monsters. We did Lucy Westenra for the Monsters line as a monster hunter, and a Van Helsing as a monster hunter. So that the idea was that at some point take those two figures and spin that off into its own original line. But
Right.
But it's really tough to do that, you know. We're finding that with the line we're doing, but even it really hasn't been in vogue since McFarlane was doing it, you know.
Right. Yeah.
He was the first one to kind of take action figures, and well, not the first one actually. I guess everything is kind of original in the beginning, you know, like He-Man started as a toy product, I think, before it was actually a cartoon.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
It did. Yep.
I know Ninja Turtles was similar as well. They made the show strictly so they could sell some toys. They had no intentions of making a long running show or anything. They just wanted to sell some toys.
yeah, and look how poorly that did.
Yeah. Right.
I'm actually a big Ninja Turtle fan. I do collect quite a few. I got a big wall full of the old figures and then the new ones as well.
Do you have any of the
Dude,
4
there's
foot
so
ones?
many
Do you have any of the 4 foot tall ones that were at like Walmart or whatever?
I have Mikey. I don't have. They did a Mikey, and I think they did a Leo. I think the idea was to do all 4 originally, and I don't think they sold as well as they wanted to because they only ended up doing the 2. But I've got Mikey.
Yeah. The
I had
only
to get one.
that was Jack's, wasn't it? Was that Jack's?
Yeah, that was
the only one I sprang for out of those giant figures is they had a cool, like 2 foot tall. Looks almost like a Neil Adams Batman. Or as close as a company like that's going to get to a Neil Adams Batman, you know. And it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
I don't collect stuff that
I think I know what you're
usually.
That's cool. So if this is kind of in a kind of a simple term, I guess, or a simple way to kind of explain this without getting too crazy, I guess, just for our viewers, other people that don't really know too much about toy making and whatnot, like, could you give us a kind of short process of how you sculpt or the process of sculpting a figure? Like, I don't know, like how you start it and where you finish it. And obviously, you know, there's other people that are working on the figure as well. And yeah, just kind of how your process and what you like to do for Creatureplica or any products that you're working on.
Yeah, sure. Generally what happens is I'll get either get design work for a company or a basic concept like a character. Like I told you how the Hawkeye thing kind of kicked off.
Yeah.
Yep.
In that case, even if I get artwork from a company, I usually got to do a little research. Like if I get one drawing of Deadpool, that's not enough to do, in my mind, to do the character justice. You know, because I got to look at it. Sometimes the way things are drawn, there might be aspects of that character that are left out of the drawing, like a certain piece of equipment or an aspect to the costume, like how the lines run on the costume. If a guy interprets it differently and I just go off of his drawing, what if it's not correct? Or what if it's not what people are expecting? So I go and do a little background research to make sure I know what I'm doing. And also to get my head into the space. And then at that point, I start roughing out the figure to, you know, match the drawing if it's a situation. Sometimes I'll get like, just like thumbnail sketches, like a rough pose, like practically a stick figure or a suggestion of what they want, you know, make them standing on a building or something. And
Right.
so I'll get the basic pose and the anatomy. And again, that's going back to the comics. I mean, every one of these heroes, they're not necessarily cookie cutter. It's like the way that I'd sculpt. Like if you look at the last few things that have popped up of mine online, where like I did a couple of different Deadpools, did a Cable, I did a Moon Knight, and a couple different Captain Americas, Sam Wilson, and then Steve Rogers from Marvel Now. Each one has very specific, different anatomy because they shouldn't all look like the same guy with a different costume. You know that it's
right.
different.
They got very different builds.
Yeah, and it's different. Like, I mean, you could see like what the mass market companies do, which again is different from what Diamond does. When we do a Marvel Select figure, every figure, unless we're doing a specific repaint on a character, is a brand new sculpt. So you can go in each time, and Spidey can have different anatomy than Deadpool and Captain America or whatever. If you look at the Hasbro stuff they're using, they have, you know, probably half a dozen different body types, big guys, in between guys, a few different girls with different articulation. But you're going to see one of their A bodies, you know, dozens of times with different heads and different accessories. But if you're doing statues, there's no reason to be stuck in that kind of a mode. That's specifically done to maintain a certain cost overhead when you're producing lines of figures, because PVC sculpture, whether it's statues or action figures, are incredibly expensive. So that's why, you know, and this is a tangent, of course, but that's why, like, when I'm on all sorts of toy boards on Facebook, and it always cracks me up when people are PO'd about which characters get left out and which characters get done, and then they're reusing this part and repainting. That's the only way this stuff happens, because you have to be able to sell thousands of pieces. Like, for us as a little company, we had to produce 5,000 pieces of each one of those figures in that picture. You know, some of them were repaints, like the Sasquatch. There's a few we broke out smaller runs of like 400 or 500 pieces of head variants. But if your factory minimum number of pieces is 5,000 pieces, you got to be sure you can sell 5,000 pieces of that character. And if you pick some Z-lister that no one wants, it's probably going to be a peg warmer. And that's the other reason, like, from my perspective anyway, that the BAF thing became so popular, like, since Toy Biz started doing it. Because if there's one bum figure in that line, you still need, you know, whatever guys like ankle joint or something, or his head, to be able to finish that BAF.
Forces you to buy them all.
Yeah.
Of course, what's great now with eBay,
for our,
if I
real
like the
quick,
BAF, I just look for it on eBay and wait till the price drops.
For sure. Real quick, for our viewers that don't, some people that aren't collectors, BAF is build a figure. So certain, you know, figures, there'll be like, you know, 6 or 8 figures that'll come out in that line, and each figure will come with like an arm, a leg, a head, a torso, and so you have to build that figure. So it forces you to buy all of those 8 figures within that line to be able to complete the build a figure. Usually the build a figures like a little bit bigger than the other figures, and so just for people that don't know, that's what's up with that.
Yeah, it's cool. I mean, there's plenty of them that I've picked up just because I thought the build a figure looked cool. Like, the coolest one, well, you saw the Red Skull in the whatchamacallit armor. I really dig that. And that Warlock character that they did a couple lines ago that looks like C-3PO and Acid. I didn't even know who that was.
Yeah.
And I saw the Build-A-Figure. I could care less about anyone in that line. But I waited until the Build-A-Figure dropped on eBay and picked it up.
Nice.
Yeah. Well, I know they just came out with Marvel Legends. They got the lizard Build-A-Figure coming out with the Spider-Man line. The lizard is really cool, but there's some of the other figures that I'm not really too interested
we
in.
have to obviously get the Spider-Punk.
Oh yeah,
for ToyPunks, but
yeah,
it's kind of a bummer sometimes. But like you said, I mean, you can grab those parts on eBay or the whole figure completed on eBay.
Yeah, the one I still want to really get is the the Mantis figure, but she's still too ridiculously priced right now. But
yeah.
You know, again, it's one of those things. I'm a collector, so I wait till the bargain. I mean, I feel bad for people that they have to have everything when it first comes out, and they're like paying stupid money to scalpers and on eBay. It's like, dude, just wait 2 months.
Yeah. A couple months, and you'll be able to find it in your store.
Not do the eBay thing.
The sculptors are going to have 1,000 black and white Deadpools sitting in their garage, and the stuff's going to drop in price.
Dude,
whatever.
I got one at GameStop, dude. It was buy one get one half off, and I found that back in black Deadpool. But yeah, it's with the, I guess, because we're doing the toy reviews, you know, so sometimes it kind of sucks because we want to try and get that product in that review as soon as we can. A lot of times we have trouble finding it, you know. But I won't unless maybe dude it's like $5 over if we need it, dude, maybe. But I don't know, that's bogus. And it's just like exactly like you said, man, like those figures are gonna come down eventually.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, well, even when the Thor Ragnarok wave came out, you couldn't find them anywhere. People were selling them for ridiculous amounts of money, and now you find them in every single Walmart you walk into, every Target. They're right there, pretty much everything you want.
All right, so I think we.
So, is there anything that you're currently working on that's really cool?
Should we still continue with the sculpting?
Yeah, we wrap that up too if you want. Like we got as far as, let's see, I start roughing out the proportions. Once I get usually I'll show it to the client in different stages, like rough proportions, starting to put in the detail. And then when it's finished, they got to submit it to the licensor, like Marvel or Universal or whoever, and they have to approve the sculpture. Sometimes they'll come back with, you know, a few or a lot of revisions that I have to make, and then we resubmit it. And then once they approve that sculpture, then I mold it and cast it. And I have a friend of mine who used to work with me at McFarlane. She does all my paint work. So she paints it, and then we have to submit it for paint. Maybe they like it as is, or they give us some adjustments to make in the paint scheme. Then we resubmit it. And God forbid there's any actor likenesses, then you got to wait till they submit it to usually like the director maybe, and then the actor or actress. That's where it gets kind of sticky.
They have to confirm it, the actual actor or actress or whatever.
Yeah, or at least their people, you know.
Yeah, right.
Sometimes it's not so bad. Sometimes it's a complete disaster. You know, you end up weeks, months on a project because they can't necessarily get something in front of those people because they're on set somewheres. And then also it's, you know, too many chefs in the kitchen, because then you got art director, the property licensor, the movie director, and the actors. It can really become a mess, but sometimes not. But so you get through that point, then the figure's done. You showed it shows or whatever, photograph it for all the previews ads or whatever toy website. And then I send a painted copy and an unpainted casting to the factory, and they start building the molds for it and costing out the paint scheme. That's why, you know, like you see something in prototype photos, which is totally different than what happens at the factory, is the prototype's all hand painted. The factory, they have a certain amount of operations that they can do by making certain things in colored plastic. And I don't know how familiar you guys are with certain painting techniques, but there's like washes where you're just running kind of a watery, you know.
Right. Yeah, I know.
Washes and wipes and things to get some character to the toys, and then fine detailing in the eyes and hair and any kind of oddments on the clothing. And they go through that and come up with a price, and then the client looks at it and said, okay, we have to be in this price range. Here's the elements that we're going to take out of that paint scheme so that we can hit this price range. Because again, it's a game of numbers. If your price per unit is too high and you can't make a certain profit margin, because there's all sorts of other things that people don't realize. You have to have these things safety tested to a certain age group.
Yeah.
And if you're targeting like a younger age group, like a lot of times collector stuff, you do like 13 and up. So you can skip a lot of safety testing. But still, I think we did 13 and up on our stuff. And we had like, I don't know, like might have been $3 or $4 grand in safety testing.
Wow.
You know, that might be totally wrong, but it was pretty high. It was a few grand.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
I imagine stuff like that's probably not cheap.
Yeah. And so you want to cut off pennies, nickels wherever you can. So then you just wait till an action figure usually can take anywhere between 6 and 9 months. And then you start getting in unpainted samples to approve what the sculpture looks like, see if they have to make any adjustments in their molds. Then they start sending you the painted samples with all of the changes they made to fit within your budget, and you wrestle with them on that. Then you see package samples. So, you know, basically say a mean is about 8 months. So that's when you start to see it. And then, or like we do stuff with Disney for Marvel Select. They may sit on them longer because they have a certain spot in their schedule where they want to place that. So it may be a while, even longer than that, before it actually sees the light of day. You know, but that's, whether it's a statue or an action figure, it's basically pretty similar process. The only difference is on my end is on an action figure, I have a certain amount of that time. Once the proportions and the pose and everything are kind of where they need to be, then I start measuring all the joint areas for the articulation that I'm going to start machining for it.
Okay.
Okay. So you build in all the articulation and everything as well then.
Yeah, the majority of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, some of it I'll kind of rough in. Like I may just have half rounds where like the head and the shoulders are instead of actually building a full ball joint. Depends on a lot of things, how much time I have in my schedule, or I might add extra joints at the factory, you know, tell them to put in thigh cuts. Maybe I skip that in the sculpture and I can just draw it on there and say, put thigh cuts here. And sometimes some things don't work the way they're going to make them. Like I just did a Planet Hulk a few months ago, came out, and he was going to have the barbell in the torso between the abdomen piece and the rib cage, so you could get a little bit of that rocking back and forth. Yeah. But it's weird. Sometimes they do it, sometimes they don't. With a big figure like that, I know they did with our figures. They were afraid because of the weight of the figure that putting a little barbell in there might be a problem. Like it might snap too easy or something. So you never know. But for the most part, I like working with Diamond because with the PVC stuff, the action figures, it's pretty consistent. You know, I mean, you're never going to get perfectly painted eyes necessarily, but a lot of the stuff is pretty close to what we do in our prototypes.
That's awesome. That's cool. Yeah. So like you had mentioned, kind of like with the painting and stuff, you had mentioned, you know, like certain plastics are colored plastics, and then some they'll do like, you know, like they'll have like the base color plastic. They'll do a wash maybe over that. But like, I've always just like wondered like those eyes, dude. So there's just one dude, like, or not one, but like just people in this factory just all day, just bam, just painting
eyeballs.
Yeah,
you think your job sucks. Imagine that.
Dude. That's so
not
insane
so bad,
to me.
actually.
Yeah,
Now that I think about it.
Yeah, that's insane. Cool, man. Well, that's pretty informative, dude. It's really interesting. I thought it was cool how you explained all that.
Yeah, it's good stuff to know. You know, I've always kind of wondered the whole process of that because obviously I don't make anything, but I collect it, so it's cool to kind of know that kind of stuff. Do you have, is there any like favorite artists that you like to work with when you're doing your sculpts and stuff, as far as like, you know, who's going to paint, or, you know, whether you're going to kind of have anybody help you out or do anything like that? Do you have anybody that you like to work with specifically?
Well, I mostly work by myself, but I've been working with the same painter, Sandy Schaefer, since McFarlane. So she's done everything. Almost occasionally.
Do you get to choose that?
What's that?
Do you get to choose the painter? Like, if you're like, yo, I know this, like, I've been working with this person for a long time, I want her to specifically do this, you know?
It depends. Like, most of the companies, if they hire me to do the whole job, then they just take it on faith that if I'm taking on the paint work, I'm going to get somebody good, not some scrub, you know?
Yeah.
But
right,
then,
right. That makes sense.
You know, but then some companies, a lot of the stuff that I do with DC, I did the paintwork on that and had her, she was my painter on it. But then there was a lot of stuff where it depended on the art director. If he already had somebody that he wanted to use, then the paintwork went to that person. You know, I kind of like to control it because I want to have the paint complement what I'm doing. Sometimes if it's a painter you don't know, you just don't know what they're gonna do. You know, her, I can call her up and say, I want this color to lean a little more in this direction. You know, like stuff like Planet Hulk, I gave her like 2 pages of notes on that figure. Wow. You know, it depends on the job. Some of them, you know, we also did a Black Panther. That was a very quick conversation. You know, paint him all black, little bit of blue highlights, and his eyes are white, and you're out. You know, you can basically do almost the whole job with a spray can. But it's not always the case, you know. And with her situation too, I mean, she painted most of my stuff at McFarlane, so she knows my style intimately. So if there's something that I don't have to do a lot of call outs, like some projects are complicated because like there's no consistency with the figure. With somebody like Deadpool, I can pull some artwork and say he's black and red. Here's the red that I really like. And then just have her run with it. Right. And but when we did the cable that went with, it's paired up with the last Deadpool I did. The cable, there are not 2 issues of a comic book where he even has the same costume that's even close. So I had really tight concept artwork from Diamond that I loved, but it was black and white. So I went through just reams of cable artwork and picked out all the colors to match with the version that they had kind of drawn, but it didn't really match any specific version. So I just went through it. It's like, okay, he's got the shoulder pads. Generally, if he has shoulder pads, they're sort of this color. His costume should be an overall leaning into blues so that it kind of harkens back to that X-Men blue and yellow feel.
Yep.
But so again, that, you know, as much as this stuff is factory work in a way, you know, it's commercial artwork. There's a lot of art in that commercial artwork end of things. You know,
for sure, man.
Aesthetic decisions, and even though it's a business thing, I mean, most of the people involved in this are very aesthetically oriented. You know, they want to make good product. It's not just, you know, Scrooge McDuck sitting behind his desk on a pile of money trying to make the happiest toy for, you know, the most money. Most of these people are very into it, and they're very they want to be proud of what they're producing, you know, within the parameters of what their budget for a product, you know.
Absolutely.
Yeah, dude. That's awesome to know, you know, and to hear that from somebody who works in the field. Because I mean, I'm sure, you know, there's just so many haters out there, people complaining all the time about stuff, and they don't know what's up, dude. They don't know.
There's just not enough tampons to go around for all those toys.
No one's ever happy with anything.
Exactly. And it's like you said, like all the legalities, there's probably just so much crazy stuff that goes into it. But yeah, man. So let's see, what else do we got here? So what are you currently working on?
Well, the stuff I'm currently working on,
you can talk about.
Yeah,
because who knows? Yeah.
Contractually, I can't talk about them, but outside of my contract work, my regular contract work, at some point I have to finish a bunch of Creatureplica things. I'm working on, like if you look at our banner on Facebook, there's a Alien Gray that's kind of next, and a Wendigo. We showed a bunch of new variations on the Sasquatch. Like one part of that line, we're going to do straight repaints on, well, not totally straight repaints, but variations on the Sasquatch body with new heads and hands and things like that. I did a sheep squatch, which kind of has like ram's horns and kind of split hands. and like a green man, which is sort of looks Swamp Thing-ish because he's all green, but he's more from like European folklore, kind of a wild man of the woods. I don't know if you're into Wicked stuff at all, like Cernunnos or Pan, one of those kind of forest entities.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's awesome. Yeah, dude, I really like, I don't know, I just like the whole idea of the creature replica, the like cryptozoology stuff is cool.
Yeah, it's really
there's not
cool.
really like another line that does that. I think it's, I don't know, it's sweet, and the figures themselves look terrific. They look amazing.
Yeah, they're cool. And Toy Bros, there you go. You answered your question. Toy Bros, YouTube was asking what you guys were working on for the upcoming creature replica line. So there you go. There's the answered question for you.
Yeah, let's see. There's that. I did a magazine interview a while back, Cryptid Culture, and I gave them a bunch of pictures because we're actually working on a Krampus also.
Yeah, that's cool.
What?
And let's see, where to go? And Mothman, obviously.
Nice.
We've been partnered up with this film company called Small Town Monsters. Seth Breedlove kind of kicked this thing off where he does a couple of new kind of cryptozoology oriented documentaries each year. So I did a Mothman statue as one of his Kickstarter rewards last year for Mothman at Point Pleasant. And this year they're working on, Bray Road Beast. What's the other one? I got to pull up I'm actually going to be on his Kickstarter thing tomorrow night. There's, trying to remember what the hell this monster's called now. Oh, Flatwoods Monster. It's kind of this alien looking thing.
Okay.
And then also he's partnered up with another guy who's working on a Champ movie. Champ is sort of the Great Lakes equivalent of the Loch Ness Monster.
Okay, dude, I don't know if you've heard, but like, I guess, I don't know, it's kind of funny, but like Chicago, we're from Chicago, there's all these sightings of our own Mothman, I guess, out there. People, I
yeah,
swear,
they're saying they saw him again now,
dude,
right?
Yeah, dude. Like a couple months ago, there was all these like sightings of this like giant bat creature flying around, or like a Mothman type creature flying around, and then it was dead for a while, and then it like popped up again.
Yeah, I did hear about that. I'm not sure how that relates to the other Mothman, or even if it does. I mean, obviously, I've been into this stuff for a really long time, since I was a little kid, and a lot of them, I mean, I have more of a scientific bent as far as it can go, and I think the only thing that I've ever heard that's somewhat plausible is the Sasquatch thing, but the evidence is pretty scant, though. But I mean, you get into Mothman, the Jersey Devil, I mean, they're not biologically viable, and there's nothing in the fossil record that would even suggest something like that did or could exist. I mean, Sasquatch, you have, Australopithecines, Meganthropus, Gigantopithecus. There's all sorts of creatures or proto-humans that sort of fit that mold in certain ways.
Yeah,
there's no fossil evidence in this country for them, but biologically they're possible. But all these other things, and or extant dinosaurs living in freshwater lake, I don't know. Cool to think about, though. Fun to make.
Yeah, it's fun. It's fun. Yeah.
But that's the next thing coming up. That's actually tomorrow night around this time. That's what I'm going to be doing. Is I'll be talking to those guys about their Kickstarter on Facebook Live, I think.
Nice. Cool. I'll be there. I'll check it out.
We'll check that out for sure. Anybody who's watching, check that out as well tomorrow. That'll be
because there's I'm actually doing another statue for that. There's a Bray Road Beast statue, and I designed a T-shirt with those guys with all those creatures
dude.
on
It looks sweet. That's awesome, man. So yeah, I think we went over a lot of what we wanted to go over. We talked
as far as the toys and everything. I mean, there's a lot of different stuff that we were interested in as far as the sculpts go, and it looks like we kind of covered pretty much most of our bases.
So if we kind of mentioned this earlier a little bit, ToyPunks, obviously we do the toys. A big part of ToyPunks is the music. I was in a band. We were both in bands prior to doing this, growing up, and it was a big part of our lives. You had mentioned that you were in a band. It was a big part of your life. So I just kind of wanted to go back to that real quick, kind of before we completely wrap it up. So you had mentioned you're a piano player,
Percussion
and
as well.
percussionist as well. What are you currently? What bands are you currently into? Does your work influence your music?
Well,
Yeah.
in terms of,
I mean, does your music influence your work? I'm sorry.
yeah. Well, musically, most of the stuff I listen to is kind of 70s prog rock. Listen to a lot of Yes, Jethro Tull.
Nice.
Zeppelin's not prog, but I listen to a lot of Zeppelin. And some of my earlier influences are Purple and Rainbow, Michael Schenker Group.
Okay.
I don't get too far out of the 70s, really. Some 80s, I got a lot of hair metal on my gym mix.
Yeah.
And as far as playing myself, like it's always been kind of a battle to try to put together a progressive band to do the stuff that I write. Because I write stuff that, there's elements of like Yes and Rush in it, stuff like that. And tough to get people that want to put that kind of commitment into music, or can. You can't put together a band of straight ahead guys and expect them to play that kind of line work or understand the chordal structures.
Right.
And it's hard to find jazz guys that want to play written, music that's restrictive, like, fully composed stuff. And, what you usually end up with is try to find like Yngwie kind of players that have the chops, and you kind of help them along to understand the more complex stuff that they're not familiar with, but that was really hard to do. I had a couple of situations that got to do some pretty cool stuff with, but it just never went far enough, past that point, past that sort of stay fresh state with a band,
Yeah.
Usually you get like maybe you get a couple of years out of a band before it's like, all right, well, we're not really doing anything outside of the basement, so
right.
Not gonna happen,
Yeah.
Like this year I've started to get back into music, but only just learning stuff I've always wanted to on the piano, like
That's awesome.
pieces of
That's
music
cool.
that I started learning when I was in college, like 20 years ago. And then once I got out of college, and just with work and then this career and everything else, kind of fell away from it. So
yeah.
just
Well, dude, I'm glad you're back at it, man. Dude, you got to keep on, and you got to keep on playing just for fun. And that's what I'll never, like, I'm not doing the band thing right now, but I'll never stop playing music, or at least just jamming with my buddies, or just making stuff up on my own. It's just something that'll always be a part of me forever, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'd love to get back into it. It's just the situation would have to be right for me to even move my keyboards at all, even to move one. And I just can't imagine having the time, I mean, as it is, it's tough. Like, I try to carve out an hour a day to practice and an hour a day go to the gym. And just to take those 2 hours out of every day with the work schedule that I have, it's really tough. Like this time of year, I got to bail on all that stuff. I work like probably a 16-hour day just trying to get all this sculpture done.
Wow, that's actually one thing I forgot to ask you about, is how long roughly does it take you to sculpt a figure? I mean, I know that they all probably depend on the figure, but like your average like 6 or 7 inch figure.
Well, depending on the detail. I mean, ideally, maybe maybe a couple of weeks if it's not too crazy.
Wow.
But if it's like Planet Hulk took me a few weeks because it's a big figure. I had to do a lot of new articulation. The accessories weren't that hard, but had its own inherent problems because of the size of it and things, and
right,
complicated stuff. But you do a simple figure, like I mentioned Black Panther before. It's just a guy in a bodysuit.
Yeah, right.
There's not much to it. I mean, you could blow through that pretty quick.
Yeah.
So it can range anywhere from like a couple of weeks to 6 weeks. Who knows? Depends.
Wow.
Like Cable took me a long time. It's not an action figure, but the statue, because there was like a zillion little bits and pieces on the costume that had to be either machined or fabricated or sculpted detail. And I might have spent almost a week just on his big friggin' cannon on his shoulder, you know.
Wow.
So it depends on the job. So I try to balance it, you know, because as a sculptor, I'm always trying to find that next thing that's going to challenge me even more, you know. Like Cable is a tough one. Like it's not difficult work, but everything takes a lot of time to get it right. And so I'm kind of always looking for that next thing, but you don't want to be just, you know, breaking your butt like all the time on stuff. You want some stuff where it's like, okay, this is cool. Like I did a Moon Knight for them guys, and Moon Knight's not like a tough character to sculpt because he's mainly got a bodysuit, but you want to put time into it. Again, you know, how do I delineate this guy's muscle structure from, you know, like the Deadpool I just did?
Yeah.
Right.
Like you were saying before, just so they're not all just generically same body,
Right.
same.
So it has some different things, but it's not the intensity of like doing somebody with a lot of mech gear, you know?
Yeah.
So I try to balance it out though. I wouldn't want to do like the same thing over and over and over. You know, and occasionally I'll do stuff like Mez would come to me with like oddball jobs, like that giant Frankenstein I did, the weird cartoony leather face and the Thundercat stuff. Completely the other end of the spectrum from some of the things I normally do, you know. So
No, dude, like that's what's crazy is you just have like such a wide range of different stuff that you do. It's really cool. Like you don't have like a specific, like I'm only doing horror movie stuff or I'm only doing this, you know. I think that shows your talent too, you know, because certain people might only be able to do certain things. It seems like you can do a lot.
Good range of different styles.
All right, so let's I'm sorry, were you done? I didn't mean to like cut you off.
I was just rambling. You could have cut that off anywhere.
Cool.
Yeah, I mean, I think that hits most of the questions we wanted to ask for you.
Yeah.
Through the show, we did get a few different questions from people who are watching, so we're going to just run through a few of those with you real quick. See if we hit some of these bullet points and get a couple different questions from different people.
All right. First question. Grim Rodriguez. Ask him if he uses ZBrush and what he thinks about 3D sculpted and printed figures.
I've started dabbling in it, but I don't know well enough to do anything with it yet. I'm just starting to get into it this year, and I've been pretty resistant to it. I have a lot of friends that are very competent at it, and I have a lot of respect for. I mean, I'm not really into doing it, but like it or not, it's going to be a live or die kind of thing at some point. You know, like as it stands now, Diamond books my year completely with all traditional work, and plus I do a ton of art direction for them and everything.
Yeah.
But for me to completely stick to the traditional method forever, I think it's a bad idea to think that this gravy train's going to roll forever. I'm going to have to make the adjustment. And I've dabbled in it a little bit. I think it has the potential to be really cool. And a few of my friends who were hardcore traditionalists told me, you know, once they got into it, they were very into it. So
cool.
I'm looking forward to playing with a little more this year. But so far, everything you see that I've ever done is all just, you know, scratching away at a block of clay or plastic and grinding stuff out on it now.
That's it up.
That is cool. Good question, Grim Rodriguez.
Yeah, kudos, bro.
We got Horrid Rocker. He actually asked a few times. He's interested in that gray character in the back with the antlers. He wants to know what that is.
Oh, that's the Wendigo. If he takes a look at our Creatureplica Facebook page, there's a few pictures of it on there. I know there's one right in our banner, maybe two in our banner, but there's some pictures of that. If he digs through our pictures on there on our Facebook page, you'll find a few pictures of it. It's still kind of a work in progress. he's going to have a lot of Native American gear on him, like weapons and things like that, and a lot of feather kind of stuff. It'll end up having kind of a WoW kind of feel to it, you know, Warcraft type vibe.
Okay.
That's cool.
He also wants to know if you have ever made a Mortal Kombat figure or
No.
a character.
No Mortal Kombat so far.
All right. What do we got next?
Let's see. We got Liam Anthony wants to know what your favorite anime is.
What the hell is it called? Vampire Hunter D, probably.
There you go.
Sweet.
Cool.
Clinton Bignall, he just wanted to say that this is so awesome, and he wants to thank you personally. It's very inspiring and impressive. I know actually Clinton, he's a good guy,
friend of
and
ours.
he's actually dabbling and starting to make his own figures, doing customs, and he's been sculpting, and just it's kind of cool. So I know he's was super pumped about this. So I just wanted to throw that out there.
And then he also
I appreciate that.
had a question here. So Clinton said that, as you said that, it was a little harder to start a line of original figures. And he wants to know, when you do you create like a backstory for that for reference and inspiration, or how do you usually go about doing like an original figure character?
Kind of depends. Like the stuff that we're doing in Creatureplica right now, there's already a bunch of folklore already associated with the creatures.
Right.
So I'm not really building backstories for them so much, but there's some stuff we're going to be doing that's a little bit of an offshoot of this, where I have some stuff I'm writing for it, if we get that far. But I used to do the same. I used to do that, though, when I worked on stuff at McFarlane, when we were doing some of the original stuff. I would kind of build out a storyline in my head, and that would drive what I was doing on the sculpture, because they would give you kind of a rough sketch, and then you'd kind of develop it on your sculpture table. So yes and no.
All right, cool.
All right. The Horde Rocker again, he had said this earlier, I forgot to say, but he wants to know, have you created any original monsters from your nightmares? It's just kind of a weird question, but
I did once. I did
There you go.
yeah, that's awesome.
it was, I don't know, it had to be like 20, 25 years ago. I just was kind of dabbling in drawing, and I drew like this, there was these two cyclops in my backyard in the dream, and I drew one of them, and I eventually made a toy of it, have it sitting around here somewhere. It's a pretty crappy sculpt because I did it like way back in the beginning, but he may make his way into one of our lines, but I'd totally redo it.
Nice, dude.
So yeah, that's a yes.
Sweet.
Awesome.
That's a
Cool.
yes. Let's see what else do we got here.
See, Toy Bros asked about the Creatureplica, which we actually covered already.
Nick Bedoin, he asked if you could sculpt any living person, who would it be and why?
Is it Nick Bedoin or is it Nick B. Doing?
Nick Bedoin.
Living person. I'm not sure. I've done so much realistic stuff that I don't really pursue that work. If a cool project comes up and there's someone whose likeness I want to do, then, but I can't think of anybody specifically. It would probably have to be someone in music, like maybe like be cool to do a sculpt of Hendrix.
That'd be cool.
Nice.
But yeah, I don't know. It kind of depends. Like occasionally jobs come across my table that I never really considered, and they'd be like, oh, that'd be really cool to do. And then, so I don't know. Every time one of these rock and rollers dies, everyone's like, oh, you should do a sculpt of that.
Yeah, I'm sure. Yep. And then we have to ask you, because this is Toy Punks, what is your favorite punk band?
Let's see. I think probably the only punk album I think I owned was Nevermind the Bollocks.
Okay.
All right.
Cool.
Unless you're considering like the Ramones punk, I had a bunch of their albums, but I'd say Sex Pistols is probably the punk album that I own.
Cool.
Yeah. Ramones counts too.
Ramones counts for sure. Clash, too.
Good stuff. And then we got Goat Slam asked.
Goat Slam Junior.
Goat Slam Junior. Sorry. Do you have a favorite action figure of your own?
I don't know. I got like thousands. They're sort of.
Yeah, dude, I can't even. Yeah,
literally, it's like it's hard to have a favorite because like every couple of weeks or something, if I pick up a couple of new things, that's my new favorite.
Yeah,
I mean,
same with me.
Yeah, I mean, my favorite right now is the Spider Gremlin I just picked up. So
yeah.
So
what you just get.
Yeah, they're short-lived romances till the next thing shows up on your desk. You know,
yeah, sure.
Because I don't know when I went around the room if you saw like immediately on my desk, but I have probably 30 various figures all over, taking up half of my workspace.
Yeah.
So, you know, I'll see something like, oh, that's really cool. And it'll be in front of me for a while with all the other stuff. And one of the things I've been into lately is the Loyal Subjects, the little minifigures.
Yeah.
Thundercats ones. And I'm not really into He-Man, but I really like the way the He-Man figures were done.
Yeah.
So I have most of those. And what's that line? That one Funko line with the like the 4-inch chick figures. I can't remember what they're called. Crap, I don't know. It's like there's a Harley and different Street Fighter figures.
The old school looking ones.
The hell are these things called? Hold on a second, I'll look it up. Yeah, they're like stylized. I'm not really into the Funko thing in general, but this particular line I think is kind of cool because I like animated stuff. Hold on. Oh, Rock Candy. That's what they are. They're like 4-inch stylized figures. Those are pretty cool. But in general, I don't really get too much into the stylized block figures and big-headed stuff. I think that I'm a little burnt out on that like chibi-esque style that everybody's mimicking for their toys and
yeah, for sure. No, totally. All right. Toy Bros again. They wanted to know if there's any possibility of Lovecraftian inspired monsters, some Cthulhu action maybe, or.
Yeah, I think if again, it's like we're a small company. If we can stay afloat, then
yeah,
Lovecraft is definitely going to be in the mix. I'd love to do a giant rotovinyl Cthulhu so that he could be kind of in scale with our other figures.
Dude, that'd be cool.
Like a Loch Ness monster like that.
Yeah.
That would be
awesome.
Really,
you guys, you heard them, dude. Buy these figures so we could see more, man.
Because I haven't seen with the Lovecraft stuff. It's tough, man. Because when you read those books, the descriptions are so amorphous. You really gotta come up with something interesting. And I mean, I haven't seen the only Lovecraft Cthulhu sculpt I liked was done by Paul Komoda. He did. I think the thing's only like 7 or 8 inches tall, but it is the sickest friggin' interpretation. And he has another one coming out he just showed last night that's like Nilo Thartep or whatever that guy's name is. Mm-hmm. And his style is such a cool amalgam of like anime or just Japanese sculptors like, what's his name? The Monster Core guy. Name slipped my mind. He did a lot of Devilman stuff in the future, but aside from that, just like people like jam tentacles on a face and put them on a Batman body. And it's just, unless you have something that's sort of retro and interesting, like those Cthulhu figures that came out. They were a couple of years ago. It was like they're real stylized, like 3 3/4 inch figures. And then they produced the Cthulhu at like 12 inches tall. Again, it was just sort of a squid head on top of a human body. So
right.
Really interesting.
Yeah, well, like his stuff, like you said, it's supposed to be like unfamiliar. The human can't even comprehend this monster. It's so crazy. So
you're not supposed to be able to conceive it or describe it, and you're trying to describe it. Just
exactly. Cool. We got
Let's see.
2 more questions, and then what? Do we have some more? We're gonna probably
Let's see
start
if we
wrapping
do.
it up after these 2. We've been going for a decent amount of time, I think. So we have from APO3. He says, have you done any custom figures of an actual band, or has I'm gonna add a little bit onto that question too. Have you done any figures of an actual band, or has a band reached out to you and asked you to do some figures for them?
Well, that was mostly while I was at McFarlane. I mean, you might have seen when I was kind of skating around the room kind of quick. I did an Ozzy figure for McFarlane, and I did a Gene Simmons from the Kiss Alive box set.
Cool.
And then various bits and pieces throughout that. And I did like a head for the Jerry Garcia when I was back there. And I did Freddie Mercury in the
Nice.
yellow jacket for NECA.
What? That's sweet.
Oh, that's awesome.
Oh,
That's
dude,
yeah.
yeah.
I like that figure a lot.
And also when I was going around, I did a model kit of Elvis and the was it the Aloha from Hawaii outfit with all the eagles and sequins on it and stuff.
Yeah, I think I saw that when you were showing off the stuff.
Yeah, I mean, if anybody wants to see more of my stuff, they can go my Facebook studio page, Gene St. Gene Studios. You look on there, I spam so much stuff on there, man. There's tons of pics. And also, if you go on DeviantArt, my tag on there is Black Plague 1348, and that's all organized by folders like vampires, DC, Marvel.
What was that one? That website?
It's
on
DeviantArt, all one.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah, because we'll go ahead and we'll once the video's over, we'll throw all that stuff in the description. I'll link to all your stuff so that way anyone who watches can check that out as well.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, and that was kind of the last thing, I guess. Really was just what you wanted to plug, and where you can get your figures at, and how we can contact you, or if there's somebody out there that wants a figure maybe made. You said that you do some work for people sometimes. I think you mentioned earlier. Just your contact information, and you mentioned the Kickstarter. Yeah.
The easiest, if someone wants to contact me for whatever reason, they can just send me a note on Facebook to say, hey, I'm a collector too, so I like to meet other collectors. And
Cool.
That's the easiest way. Check out my Deviant page. Like I said, has a pretty broad array of my work. And then just buy those friggin' cryptid action figures, man.
Because it's see a Cthulhu, man.
Because that'll and I think for the last couple of months we've been doing free shipping in the contiguous 48. So
there you go, free shipping. Order now.
Yeah, and then tomorrow night, like I said, it's the Kickstarter for Small Town Monsters, which encompasses the Beast of Bray Road, Champ, and the geez, I can't think. Never remember that damn monster's name, but you'll see it. He's an alien-looking dude. But tomorrow night around 8 o'clock, I think they're doing it, and it's to sponsor the next 3 documentaries. And in the Kickstarter rewards, there's a Beast of Bray Road statue and also a shirt that I designed with them. And they just have a buttload of rewards, shirts and stickers and all the DVDs. They have these real sick-ass artists doing posters for them too. Sam Sheeran does killer stuff, and there's a few other dudes I'm forgetting too. So definitely something to check out if you're into monsters, and especially if you're into cryptozoology. Seth's movies they shred, man. You can watch them all on Amazon too. I think they're all on Amazon Prime now.
I'll for sure have to check that out.
Awesome.
That sounds really cool. All right, Gene. Well, once again, thank you so much for taking the time to talk with us. It's been a real honor to have you here tonight on our first episode of Toy Punks Live. I know you said you're really busy before the New York Con next month, so we really do appreciate you doing this with us. And I think that pretty much does it. So if you guys, like he said, buy those Creatureplica figures, help him out, look at his stuff, check out that Kickstarter. They're going to be doing a video tomorrow. And also, if you guys like what you saw, we're going to be doing more interviews. So if you guys can just subscribe our button, hit that little bell so you guys can get notifications when we put out more videos.
Hit us up on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter as well. We're on all that good stuff. Obviously, you know, hit up Gene on Facebook as well, on Instagram, and check out all this stuff. Like I said, we'll put all the links to everything in the description of the video once the live feed is over and it shows up as a regular video, so you guys can check all that stuff out. And yeah, again, thanks everybody for watching.
So,
Thanks, Gene, for coming.
Yeah, I appreciate
so
Hope everybody enjoyed.
Thanks for inviting me on. My pleasure.
Oh, no,
Absolutely.
thank you.
Pleasure's all over here. So.
Yeah, seriously. All right, guys. So that about does it for ToyPunks Live, episode 1. My name is Jordan.
My name's Christo.
And we are
Toy
ToyPunks.
Punks.
Oi.
Oi.